Hi everyone and welcome to my Thank Card It's Friday. Today we'll be making a black and white themed card. Now starting with the base to be basic black, I'm going to emboss the white mat that I'm going to put on top of it through the Big Shot using an embossing folder. This one here is Vintage Wallpaper. It is one of my favourite embossing folders to use with Stampin' Up. So I'll run this through the Big Shot and I'll be right back. Okay, now you can see what it's done to my white cardstock. It's created a embossed image, and we call this dry embossing, where the image is raised from the cardstock. Okay, so that's going to be placed down there as a mat. But let's get the rest of the card started. I'm going to be using this stem image from the fabulous Florets stamp set, which is quite a lovely stamp set. It was in the last mini catalogue, so it's now retired. Now, I'm going to stamp this image with jet black ink, which is a nice ink that I always seem to go back to for a nice crisp image. Everyone has their favourite inks. You can use the basic black, but I just like this particular ink. So I'm getting it nice and inked up, putting it straight back on the lid, line that up on my grid and stamping that straight down onto the cardstock. So that's the image that I've got. Now I know you probably have noticed that, but I'm going to cover that anyway with the floral, one of the flowers from the stamp set. Okay, so now for the background of this, I've used this technique before. It's called the blocking technique. I don't know if that's the real name, but that's the technique I've called it. Whereas I actually put the ink on the clear block, which the clear block is what I use to mount my clear mount stamp sets. I've used wood mount for this one, but as a background, I'm just going to ink this up now using Sahara sand ink, which is a very light ink. But I just wanted to create a background to this card. It's very, very, very subtle, but you can see that it's left an image on there. Okay. Now I'm going to mount that onto a black piece of cardstock. So using my snail, my Tombow mono adhesive, I'm just going to mount that on to the cardstock. Now I'm going to do the same with this image here, but what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to actually stamp this image, this white cardstock. So same stamp set, I'm just using this image here, using Sahara sand, which is the same colour that we use for this blocking technique. And I'm going to stamp on and off this cardstock. So what I mean is getting a scratch piece of paper, stamping off and then on again randomly. So it's a very light effect, but it's going to turn out quite effective and pretty. Alright, so I'll bring that closer to the camera so you can see what I've done. So it's very, very subtle, but it's enough for the card because I want the main feature of the card to be this piece here. Okay, now using these floral images from the same stamp set, I'm going to ink them up using my black Staz on, and I'm going to stamp them on Whispher white cardstock. Now I just want the image, only one image each of this floral stamp set. Now I'm going to grab my Sahara sand again. This is the ink, the classic ink pad, squeezing the lid so I can create a pool of ink on the lid there. I'm going to grab my watercolour my watercolour aqua pen, and just testing it to see that there's not too much water being squeezed out. I'm going to grab some ink from the lid of that ink pad, and I'm just slightly going to colour in this flower so it's not so white. So how I watercolour, and I'll zoom in so you can see the technique. Now it is a fairly light, colour, but it's just going to create that off-white look. So I've just grabbed some ink and I'm just pulling it across to the side and just sweeping it over. Okay, so I'll start off this side like that. Just colour that in there, and then I just pull the colour over. So it's very light-handed work and it's very subtle. So I'll bring it closer so you can see. Oh, it's a bit glary in here. Alright, so it's not as white. So I'll continue on with the other flower and I'll cut it out and I'll show you the look that I've done. Okay, so I've mounted this white cardstock onto the black, and I've done the same with these, with the white cardstock onto the black. Now, using my foam dimensional adhesive here, if you haven't seen these before, they've got foam in between the sticky bits because it raises the image up to make it almost look 3D. So I'm just going to stick a couple on this big flower here, and I'm going to place that there, and I'm going to do the same, just one on this one, and I'm placing that right there. Okay, now I'm going to start placing these down onto the cardstock. This one here I'm just going to snail down, and I'm going to place it about 3/4 of the way down. This piece here I'm going to dimensionalize using my foam adhesive again. I am a little bit generous with my foam adhesive as I don't want the card coming apart, especially if you're posting them in the mail. And these things can be quite hard to get off sometimes. Okay, so I'm going to place that on the left hand side. I'm not finished with this card yet because it's missing a sentiment. I'm actually going to use this card for a lovely lady of a friend of mine who is kind of like my surrogate mother, as my mother passed away of pancreatic cancer a couple of years back, and I've had a lovely lady who's just adopted me as her daughter in a way. She's lovely. Okay, so from the Take It to Heart stamp set, I'm going to use the banner from this stamp set. I'm just mounting it onto my clear mount there, and I'm back with my Staz on, inking that up nice and good. This cardstock should be big enough for it, hopefully. Oh, I made that perfect on there. How lucky was I? Okay. And then mounting the wonderful U. Just inking that up. I'm going to place that sentiment right there. Oh, that turned out perfect. Okay, so using my paper snips, I'm going to cut that banner out. And you don't need to see me do that. So here's that image cut out. And now I'm just going to use my foam adhesive dimensional again, but I'm only going to place it on one side on here, and then I'm going to put snail on this side. So taking the sticky off that, and I'm just going to place this down like that on there. Okay, so it's a nice clean card, just a little bit of shading using the Aqua Painter, a very handy little tool. Now you can also pick up some ink through the watercolour crayons, but I just wanted a very light effect on the flower to make it an off-white and subtle. So just a gentle sweeping motion painting that on. So this is for a lovely lady of mine, wonderful you, and I hope she has a lovely Mother's Day. So check out for next Friday's card. It's going to be another Mother's Day card, and it's going to be a pop-up card. So thanks for watching my channel. Don't forget to hit like, pop over to my Facebook website, Show Me the Love, or to my website, joherbert.com. Thanks for watching.